Hello and welcome to an episode of Origin Threadcraft, the podcast. This is a podcast predominantly about knitting with a little bit of crochet, sewing, other handcrafts, and reading lifestyle stuff thrown in. To be honest, I haven't recorded a video since September and it is now mid-March. So I might even just call this episode 1. Let's just fresh start, new year, new knitting podcast, same me, some of the same finished objects, maybe whips that you saw last time if you're a returning viewer, but let's be honest, since it's been so long, most of you are probably new. So welcome to this space. This specific episode is definitely going to be more of a traditional knitting podcast, starting with finished objects, moving into whips or works in progress, and then moving right along into stash acquisitions. And I might even talk a little bit about some things that I'm reading right now because it's winter, so I've been doing a lot of that. So I will try to put timestamps below in case there's sections that you are not interested in. It has been a long time since I recorded, so this is by no means going to be everything that I've worked on in the last 6-7 months. I'm really just going to stick with my February and March finished objects and whips. So this is just stuff that I've finished and or am working on here in the last month and a half, 2 months or so. There is quite a bit to get through, so I'm hoping this isn't super long, but like I said, I will try to put timestamps below so that you could skip around if you want to. And then anything that you're interested in hearing more about, whether it's the yarn that I used, needles, etc., I will put all that in the show links in the description box below. And feel free to ask in the comments too. I do read those, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Just as a quick introduction, my name is Julia and I'm coming to you from Central Ohio, and I go by Origin Threadcraft here on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Ravelry, and I will link those below in case you're interested in seeing more. And yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today, so let's just get into it and we'll start with finished objects. First, I guess we'll start with what I'm wearing. I am wearing today my Corinne Cardi. This is a crocheted cardigan, granny square style cardigan with knitted sleeves, kind of balloon style sleeves. And this was part of the Knit Collage Spring Make Along in 2022, so last year. And I love it. It's the perfect bright happy spring sweater, which is awesome because today we're having a really, really gray, just kind of a grim, rainy, windy day. So I thought I'd wear something kind of happy that brightened it up a little bit. It's actually a super light sweater to wear. It's knit and crocheted with their Serenity Boucle yarn in the polar bear color. And then if you can see this, it's all wildflower yarn. So this is all actually screen printed fabric that's then cut into strips and then tied off. So it's 100% cotton. And really, really lightweight, just like if you took scraps of, quilter's cotton and cut them in rows and tied them together, you could easily make yarn like that. And then the boucle, just probably from the way it's spun, it's super, super light and airy. So even though this looks like kind of a chunky knit, it's really a great 3-season sweater. And actually I would say 4-season because you can throw it over like a turtleneck in the winter if you need a little bit more warmth. But it's also not too much on a summer's evening. So I really, really like it, even though I haven't gotten a chance to wear it too much. It took me a while to finish it. I didn't finish it until I think September. So I did not complete it in the spring knit-along timelines. But I really like it and I do recommend. And Knit Collage knit-alongs I might talk a little bit about later in one of my whips sections. But they're just a really fun thing to kind of be a part of and make a piece of wearable art. It's definitely an investment, but I do think they are worthwhile, and I love this cardigan. I feel like granny squares are super trendy right now, so we're keeping it trendy. And then my other finished object is the hat that I'm wearing, and this is the Robin Beanie by Suri Nordland. I'll get in kind of close so you can kind of see the shaping and the decreases, or increases, I guess. It's actually knit from the crown, and then you just basically increase until you get to the right spot and knit forever. And it has double folded brim, so it is super, super warm. I really like this hat. I feel like it kind of broke the internet when it came out. If you saw it, she released one in this like hot pink color, which I guess was inspired by Justin Bieber. I'm not really like a Bieber person. No hate if that's your thing, I just don't really listen to his music, but I guess this hot pink hat that he wore, again, kind of broke the internet, and that's what inspired her to make it, and I want one in like 10 colors. It's just the best hat. It's so warm, it's so cozy, but also really breathable, probably because it's ribbed. Because it is ribbing, it just fits super snugly on your ears and everything, but not too tight, and I'm a big fan. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this hat and kind of the yarn that I used to make it. It is 2 strands held double, one of a fingering weight kind of woolly rustic wool, and then the other of a silk mohair. You could probably use Suri alpaca though if you're sensitive to mohair. I don't know, I think they have a pretty similar gauge. So the fingering weight yarn that I chose is from Checkered Flag Fibers, and it is a fingering weight 2-ply merino alpaca blend. And I believe it is naturally dyed. She is based out of Springfield, Ohio, and I bought this yarn at a Gathering of Wool, which is a wool festival that happens pretty close to Springfield in Yellow Springs, Ohio, every September. And it was super reasonably priced. It was like $20 for like, I think 480 yards. Like, it was a really generous yardage. And it is naturally dyed. All of her dye lots are one of a kind, so there's no dye lot listed, but I believe she called this color Marigold. It's showing up, it's getting a little washed out just because we don't have the best lining today, but it's like a true kind of mustard golden yellow. And then this mohair I actually bought from Hobbi, I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. I don't think I've heard a definitive answer either way. But it is the Super Kid Silk Mayflower, and they do have a bulk discount, so I only bought 2 balls to make this hat, and this is how much I have left over of the second one. I probably could have even gotten away with 1 if I'd just knitted it a little bit shorter, but I wanted it to have this kind of really wide brim. But if you were short on yarn, I think 1 would totally suffice. And it was really affordable, and I really like it. It is a 76% mohair and then 24%, that's how percentages work, 24% silk. And it's super soft. I don't find it scratchy at all. I haven't worked with a lot of mohair to really know whether I have a sensitivity to it, but I've been wearing this hat pretty much daily for like 2 weeks since I finished it, and I haven't gotten really any irritation like on my forehead, which is a pretty sensitive spot, and I had no trouble with it while I was knitting with it. So I would definitely recommend it just as an affordable mohair option. I believe Hobbi's based in Denmark, but the shipping was actually really quick, super reasonable, and the prices were good. And like I said, they run sales and they do bulk discounts. So I think I will definitely be looking into this mohair for some sweaters that I have in mind for the future. Highly recommend. And I really loved this pattern. It's on 3mm knitting needles, which I feel like is kind of a common, sorry, let me just take a sip of seltzer. I'm nervous, it's been a while. So I feel like 3mm needles is a super common size for like a lot of Nordic patterns, but it's not a super common size here in the US. It's a US, let's see, 2.5. So that doesn't really come in any of the interchangeable sets, at least not the ones that I own. And it was just kind of difficult for me to actually find this needle size. So I ended up getting this little set of Chiagu double points from a yarn shop that's local to me. They are the 6-inch length. So I think these are really kind of meant to make socks on. And they worked really well for doing the increases, but by the time I was to the actual stitch count to go for it with the pattern, they were just, it was right at the edges. I mean, I was like knitting right on the tips, and it would have been kind of a easy spot to lose stitches on. But I was like, I already went out and bought these needles. I'm damned if I'm gonna go buy another set of needles. But my mom kind of saw me super pathetically knitting with these double points that were just way too small, and so she smiled upon me and gifted me the set of 16-inch cable Chiagu 3mm needles, and that was a huge game changer. So if you're gonna make this hat, and you don't love magic loop, which I personally will magic loop if I have to, but I prefer not to. I do prefer just a straight up circular or even double points. I really, really liked knitting at least the body of the hat on this 16-inch circular. It was like the perfect size for it. So if you're gonna knit this hat and your gauge is similar to mine and similar to the one called out in the pattern, I highly recommend the 16-inch circular cable. It just flew off the needles. And I already have yarn for a second one. So I've been wanting kind of just a super bright red wool hat. I think I was probably knit-fluenced by like Inga from Knitting Tradition. She made this like just really like fire engine red hat to wear cross-country skiing, and I was like, ooh, I really want a bright red hat. So I bought some yarn at the same time as I bought the yellow one, also from Hobbi, and the mohair is the exact same as the yellow one I used. It's the Super Kid Silk Mayflower, and this is the color, cool, there's no color name, it just says color 20. They have like 110 colors to choose from, so that's another pro about this mohair, is if you need it to match the yarn that you're going to hold it double with, shouldn't be a problem because they have literally over 100 colors to choose from. And then the red that I got with it is their unicorn fingering weight. I think I have the label. Maybe I don't. Here it is. So it is their unicorn solid. I think it's a sock base from them. It's fingering weight, 75% merino wool, 25% polyamide plastic. So not rustic like this yellow one, but it was just kind of the exact red that I was looking for, and I didn't want this to be like an $80 hat, so I didn't want to use any like indie dyed stuff. And yeah, I figured I'd try it out. It's not, you can definitely tell it's superwash. It definitely has that kind of just like commercial plasticky feel to it, but it's also really soft because it has the merino in it, and I think it'll go nicely with this red. When I'm looking at it on the camera, the mohair looks like it has a little bit more blue tones to it, and this is definitely like kind of a true orange red. But I think when I swatch it, I think it'll actually work out fine. And I'm pretty sure this red was called Goji Berry, but don't quote me on that. They have like 4 different reds, so I don't know. I'll put the actual color in the show notes below, so in case you're like, I have to have that red, you'll be able to find it. So that is the Robin beanie, and that's everything I'm wearing. And we kind of already talked about whips with the red hat that I haven't cast on yet. But we'll just go right into the rest of my finished objects. And again, these are just from March and February. Okay, so after the Robin beanie was off the needles, I also finished a pair of socks that I've been working on for kind of a while. I've knit the first I knit the first sock in the pair back in September, but then it took me until like February to actually finish the second sock. And unfortunately I don't have it with me today because I've already been wearing it a lot and it's in my washing bin, needs washed. But I will insert a photo of it, and I do have the yarn that I used. So I used the squishy sock base from McMullen Fiber Co. in 2 colors, Red Rock Canyon and, oh sorry, Red Rock Canyon is actually this variegated one. So Red Rock Canyon and Copper Canyon. And these yarns I had left over from my Zweig sweater. It was one of my first sweaters that I ever knitted, and I just really had no idea how much yarn to order. So I had a bunch left over. I still have like pretty much a whole skein of the copper, and this is probably like 2/3, 3/4 of a skein of the variegated leftover. So I can totally make more socks with these or put them in a colorwork sweater or whatever. But great sock base. It's 80% merino wool, 20% nylon. Love her colors. She's one of my favorite dyers. I have a lot of her yarn in this episode today, so you'll see more of her stuff. And again, sorry I didn't bring the sock with me. It needs washed. There's way too much dog hair on it right now. So I'll show a picture, and I cast those off February 24th. So started in September, finished in February, made it for finish of February. Not bad. that is the Shimmer Socks by Margaret from Whimsy North, and it's just a great pattern if you want to use up scraps. It took pretty much no yarn at all, and it's just kind of fun intro to color work. If it's your first time knitting color work in socks, I think that would be a great one because it's all 1x1, so really great fit too, big fan. All right, so my next finished object I kind of feel like is the main event. This is a sweater that I knit for my partner, Dave, and I cast it on back in October. Let me see if I have the specific date on my needles here. Nope, looks like I didn't write it down. I think I wrote it in my knitting log, but I cast this on back in October, around Halloween, maybe the first week of November. And originally it was supposed to be for his birthday, which is December 8th. And then it was going to be for Christmas. And then it was going to be for Valentine's Day. And I finally actually like finished, seamed, blocked it, ready to wear February 17th. So the best laid plans, but hey, at least it's finished. And y'all who knit for your partners know that that doesn't always happen. So he's pretty excited about it. He is super knit worthy. He wears every hat that I've ever made him, like just into the ground. And he's been wanting a sweater for a while, and he totally deserved one because I knew he would wear it. And I just knew that if I tried to knit him something super basic, like just like a raglan kind of sweatshirt style, I just wouldn't have been motivated enough to finish it because I would have gotten distracted by like another cast on or something for me. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna knit you a sweater, it needs to be epic, otherwise I will not finish it. So this fall, well, let me just show it to you and you'll see, and then we'll talk about it. So this is the Awin sweater, and it is an all over cable knit sweater. It's huge, so I'm trying to get it all in the frame here. Knit in pieces and then seamed, and it has this kind of tailored raglan decreasing along the shoulder seams. And it was just a super ambitious project, but I loved it and I learned so much from it. I feel like I just grew as a knitter so much from knitting this sweater. And one is, it's the first garment that I've ever knit for someone else. Like, I've knit not a ton of sweaters, but six sweaters, and always for me, but I've never had to knit for someone else and also with like a tailored fitted fit in mind. So this is cast on from the bottom up. Like I said, it's knit in pieces. You start with the sleeves, I think, so you don't get stuck on Sleeve Island. It's a smart move. And if I didn't say it already, this is the Awin sweater, and it is a pattern from Hudson and Westco. The designer's name is Megan Babin, and it was for Hudson West Fall 2022 collection, so I'll link it below. And as soon as I saw this on Instagram, I was like, I need to knit that sweater. And the original yarn that it's called for is their Forge based, which is like a heavy worsted, kind of light Aran weight base, 100% wool. And when I put all the yarn for it in the cart, it was going to be like over $300. And I love my partner, he's great, but he also wears his knits and wears them into the ground. Like, he will wear this sweater until it disintegrates. And I would personally rather that happen later rather than sooner. And I would also prefer it not to be $300 worth of yarn. So I went with an alternative, and I used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes for this, which is their 100% Peruvian Highland wool. I believe it is a 4-ply, that looks right, worsted weight yarn, and I really highly recommend it. It was my first time knitting a garment with that wool, and I just can tell already that it's going to be super hard wearing. It has beautiful stitch definition. You can probably still see a little bit of pilling and a little bit of dog hair into this because he's been wearing it. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's been wearing this pretty much every day since I finished it. he, at least in some capacity, whether it's just in the morning when it's chilly or if it's an all-day layer, I think I've seen him in this sweater for at least 20 minutes to an hour, if not all day, since I finished it. He really loves it. And it has excellent stitch definition, so I'll get a little bit closer so you can kind of see the main cables. But I really do highly recommend this yarn. I think it worked out great for it. And it's getting a little bit blown out because, again, not the best lighting, but it's kind of a light heathered steel blue with like gray undertones. And it just is really pretty. The color is called Fjord Heather if you're interested. And like I said, I will link it below. I am actually an affiliate member with Knit Picks. So if you do end up making a purchase through my link, I get a little bit of a commission, but they're just a really great option for affordable sweater quantities and a good workhorse yarn too, I would say. Like, I'm not really worried about this. I can already tell in the armpits and stuff where it's starting to fill up a little bit. So it's just going to be really strong and really hard wearing. And I think it's going to stand up to the hell that he's going to put it through. So I highly recommend that. It does have, like I said, I'm going to go more deeply into the construction of this in a finished object video. So look out for that. I'm hoping it'll be later this week that it'll come out. But all the details will be linked below. And in the interest of this not being an hour-long podcast, I'm not going to go too deep into it. But that is my main finished object for February. And that's the Awen sweater. And yeah, look out for more details on the way of that. I have one more finished object, and this is in honor of the DRK March to May Knit Along, which is run by Andrea Mowry. In case you've been under a rock for the last 3 years, she runs that every year from March to May, and you can knit either a sweater or a shawl or both, many of, whatever. And there's just like really fabulous prizes, and I knit the Wool and Honey sweater last year for it, and I forgot to take pictures and actually put it in the finished thread. So this year I have really high hopes of finishing multiple objects and also remembering to actually put pictures in the thread so that I can be eligible for some prizes, because we all know that we're in knitting for the prizes. Anyway, this is the Birds of a Feather shawl, and it is going to be way too big to get into the frame, but it is an asymmetrical triangle shawl, and I'll get a little bit closer so you can kind of see the colors. And there's sections of garter stitch and then little sections of lace, and it's knit with fingering weight kind of sock yarn and then stripes of either mohair or Suri alpaca. So for mine, I used there, you can kind of see it. Like I said, it's gonna be way too big for the frame, but it's really pretty. And I actually haven't blocked this yet, and it does need a wet block. I think that'll even help with the drape even more. But it's already like a fabulous, huge size. Probably doesn't go with this sweater very well, but great shawl, big fan. And it was super fun to knit. Like, this really did fly off the needles. I cast this on in the middle of February, and she said that whips are welcome for the knit along, so I'll get there. And then it looks like I finished it March 10th. But I honestly knit the bulk of it in March. Like, it just flew off the needles. It was really quick. So the yarn that I used for this is actually from a Fiber Club subscription that I'm a part of with McMillan Fiber Co. And it's called the... Why am I blanking on the name? It's called the Literature Society. So it is a quarterly yarn subscription club with Macmillan, which is a Ohio indie dyer. And the the quarterly packages are all themed around classic literature. So it's also a book club. Like, there's a book for each of the 4 months that are chosen, and we all read the book, and then we get yarn and like some little extras thrown in the package that are kind of themed around that novel. And then at the end of the month, we actually have a book club meeting on Zoom. And it's super fun if you're a reader, specifically if you like classics. I highly recommend it. All the yarn that I've gotten through it so far has been super beautiful, super usable. And same deal with the extras. Like there's nothing that's like not usable, I guess I would say. Like they're just a really nice way to treat yourself, and kind of a manageable price point because it's only quarterly. And so this was the January colorway of this year, and it was the Pride and Prejudice colorways. So the sock, which I think I have the little yarn here. Yes, I do. In my bird's bag, because birds of a feather. I don't know where this is from. I've had this since I was like 8. I don't know. It's a nice project bag. And the yarn that I used is the Posh sock base, which is a 80% merino wool, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. And this color is called Prettyish Wilderness, which if you're a fan of Pride and Prejudice, you'll know that that is what kind of Lady Catherine calls their garden on the property when she comes to see them. And it's really, really pretty. It just reminds me a lot of spring. So it was really nice to work on in this kind of gray month of February and just get excited for spring. And it's a really perfect shawl for spring because it's super lightweight, super airy. So that will be nice. And then the Suri alpaca that I used for it is called the Shades of Pemberly.
Are the shades of Pemberley to be thus polluted?
Which again, if you're a Pride and Prejudice fan, you will know what Pemberley is, and it's really subtle. There was kind of a drastic difference between the dye lots and the 2 skein that I used, and the first part I would say is a lot more heavy on like grays and greens, and you 100% cannot tell at all because the lighting is horrible today, and I'm sorry about that. But then it goes into purples, and at first when I first added the second skein, I was like, uh-oh, there's the transition, so like maybe you can kind of see it if I hold it up right. I was like, ooh, that's a really drastic dye lot difference. But I was already so far in finishing the shawl and so committed to it that I was like, you know, we're just gonna roll with it. I'm not gonna frog 7 stripes of mohair to alternate skeins. We're just gonna see how it looks when it's done. And it's totally great. The way that the shawl drapes and the way that it's asymmetrical, the difference in dye lots doesn't make a difference at all. In fact, I think it actually kind of adds to it because it almost looks like an intentional fading. So really, really proud of that finished object and how quickly I knit it. I think it was like 2.5, maybe 3 weeks start to finish, and not even knitting on it every day. So that is the birds of a feather. So like I said, I'm gonna make a finished object video for the Awen sweater in which I get really deep into the details. I just don't want this podcast to be too long today. So without further ado, we're gonna go right into whips. So this is my works in progress. And again, this is just everything that I've actively been working on in February and March. And my first cast on is not super far along, but this is the Ponderosa sweater by Wool and Pine Designs, and I'll put a finished I'll put the photo from their pattern photo so you can actually see what it's going to become, but right now I just have been working on the back of it, and I am pretty far. I have about 4 inches left to finish it. And it is knit flat in pieces, and then the sleeves are picked up in the round. The back is a stockinette panel, and the front is this really beautiful Celtic cable repeat. And I've just been working on the stockinette, and I'll hold it up so you can kind of see it. Wow, it's getting super blown out. That's fine. So I am using, I'm gonna hold it over here. This is the best approximate of the color on it. This is from Woolberry Fiber Co. It is the Berry Merino base, so it is a 100% Superwash Merino fingering weight yarn. And this is the color I'm Political, which is Tom's color from her Downton Abbey collection, which she released last March. It was a big pre-order, and I think the yarn came sometime in the summer. So I'm actually using the yarn from that pre-order for 2 different projects that I'm working on, but the first one is the Ponderosa sweater. And I started with the back instead of the front because I wanted to specifically knit on this while I was reading. And I knew that cable knitting cables was not going to be conducive to that, and I also thought that I would go through the cable knitting pretty quickly because I'd be engaged with it, whereas it's harder for me to stay invested in just straight stockinette. But I discovered that I can knit stockinette and read fine. So that's mainly been what I've been working on this. It's just like at night if I'm really tired from work or something, or if I'm just really engrossed in a book, I'll pick this up. So that's what I've been knitting on. My next work in progress, which by rights should be done by now, but I got stuck on Sleeve Island and I got invested in other things. This is my fall make-along project from Knit Collage, and it is called the Inner Beauty Cardigan. And if you pretend that I have both sleeves done, it is this super retro shawl collar design. It's kind of, there's not really enough room in the frame for it, but I'll put a picture of what it's supposed to look like and what it will look like when it's done. But it's this all over textured kind of grandpa sweater with this huge shawl collar and this reverse color work at the top, reverse stockinette color work, and then goes into bubble stitch. And I have to pick up the stitches and knit for the second sleeve, and then it will be done. And I love this sweater. I think it's going to be beautiful. I have these really fun deer antler buttons, which I didn't bring in here with me, but I'll insert some footage of them so you can see them. But deer antler shed buttons for this, so I'm really excited about it, and I love the colors. I actually chose kind of custom colors for this, and I'm really excited I did because they've since discontinued the main color of the yarn, which is the creme brulee color. And it's getting a little grayed out on the camera, but it's this really nice kind of tan with warm brown tones in it, and then there's a little bit of sparkle as well. It's a little bit of like gold Angelina mixed in. I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, you can get to see the sparkle. So I'm really excited about this. I'll probably actually finish it this week. I just had so many other things that I was knitting on this winter that I just never got around to finishing it. But it's kind of, like I said, it's really more of a statement piece. Like, I work in retail and I work on my feet all day, and I'm like carrying gross boxes around a lot. Like, I could not wear this sweater to work. So I just haven't really had an occasion to finish it for. But I think I'll finish it this week and get a little bit of wear at it before we say goodbye to winter fully. So yeah, that is my Knit Collage fall make-along project. And that's the Inner Beauty Cardigan, which is a paddle by Laurel Gerbitz, who is one of their, I think she's maybe their tech editor. I know she's on the team, and I know she does a lot of like the pattern writing and fixing, and does a lot of designs for them. So her work is beautiful, highly recommend. All right, and then my last work in progress is the one that I'm mainly knitting on right now, at least in the last week. And this is a cast on that I did on March 1st, specifically for the March to May knit along. And it is the Bauble Shawl by Andrea Mowry. And I'm also using the Woolberry Fiber Co. Downton Abbey collection for it, and I'll show you how much progress I have so far. First off, here is how much progress I've made. I'm going to try not to lose balls of yarn everywhere. And I have the first garter stitch stripe section done, the first section of syncopated brioche, the lace panel, and then I'm in the second garter stitch striping section now. So I'm about a third of the way through this shawl, which is not bad considering I've really only started knitting on it heavily in the last couple of days. I have my progress keeper on there, so I know which side I'm on for the brioche, and it is so cute. It's a Hello Lavender progress keeper. I think she did this for a specific Woolberry box, maybe the summer solstice box, but I bought it in one of her kind of in-stock re-release updates, and it's just so beautiful. It just makes you like excited to knit when your tools inspire you and are from another like small business. I highly recommend. I really, really love her stitch markers. And then the yarn that I'm using again is from the Woolberry Downton Abbey collection, and I'm using Sybil's colorway, which I think is called You're My Ticket, and it's this kind of robin's egg blue with orange speckles in it. And then That's the main color. And then the first contrast color is the Dowager Countess Violets color. And I think it's called Don't Explain. Yeah, I think that's the colorway for this. I'll put it down below. And it's a very lightly variegated purple, goes from kind of lilac to like a deeper violet purple, and then there's specks of orange in it. And then this is actually from, this is still Woolberry Fiber Co., but it's not from the Downton Abbey collection. This is from her Garden Walk collection. But I bought it when she re-released. She's doing this thing called Rewind, where every month she'll do a popular color from years past. And so that's when I was actually able to get this one because I missed out on her Garden Walk collection. And this is called Stash. And it's this kind of acorn brown with orange undertones. I feel like in certain lights it shows up much more orange than it really is. It's definitely like a true neutral kind of caramely brown. But it just goes wonderful with these, even though they're from totally different collections and they're dyed months apart. It just looks really intentional with the little orange flecks in the blue and in the purple. So I'm a really big fan of it. I'm really excited for how this is coming together. I am knitting this on US 4 3.5 millimeter needles, and these are the Carbons needles from Knitter's Pride. And I love these needles. I can't believe that these don't get more hype. I honestly really want an interchangeable set of these. They are wicked expensive, so that's probably why they don't get more hype. But this is my favorite needle set to knit shawls on. I just absolutely love it. They are made out of carbon shaft, and then they have steel tips. So it has like the warmth and the kind of tactile features of wood, but they knit super fast because they're crazy lightweight, and the steel tips, it's just like metal, like stuff just flies off of them. So these are 100% my favorite needle to knit shawls with, and I would really like to own an interchangeable set one day. I highly recommend them. And I really only bought them because I used to be a bike technician, and carbon is a really big deal in the cycling industry. And I bought them kind of as a joke with another bike tech that I worked with. We were just joking. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get these carbon knitting needles. He was like, yeah, do it. And then I actually really ended up loving them. So I highly recommend. I will definitely someday I'll get to own an interchangeable set from them. But that is my bauble shawl. I'm about a third of the way done, but I'm really motoring on it. I think I'll at least get through the second syncopated brioche section this weekend, and it's really fun to knit on. And then I have high hopes for the March to Maiden Along. I'm going to finish that one. I've already finished Birds of Feather. I just need to block it. And then I think I'm going to cast on a stripes sweater. I didn't bring out the yarn for that, but I have kind of my yarn picked out for it. And I might even cast on a Find Your Fade. I don't know. We'll see. I already have the yarn picked out for that too, but there's also lots to knit, and I work full time, and who knows. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you for bearing with me. That was all my finished objects and whips. And we are going to move right into stash acquisitions. If stash acquisitions isn't your thing, no big deal. I appreciate you spending this far with me. And feel free to like and subscribe so you can get notifications for all my knitting videos, and be on the lookout for that finished object video coming out later this week. And yeah, I hope we can hang out again. And for those of you who do like stash acquisitions, stick around because I have some fun ones. All right, so let's get right into stash acquisitions. And as I mentioned earlier in the episode, I'm a member of the Literature Society, which is a quarterly yarn subscription club for McMullen Fiber Co., who's an indie dyer based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And part of that club is that we have a book club at the end of the month for the novel. And during that book club meeting, we talk about the book for sure, but a big part of it is that there's some games and some contests and fabulous prizes. So this is one of the many reasons that I would highly recommend that subscription. The book club prizes are super legit, and I actually got 2 of them. So she always does a trivia event, but since I watch Zoom on my iPad. I never win the trivia, not because I don't know the answer, just because I can't type fast enough. But she also does a scavenger hunt event where she'll call out first person to have a crochet hook or first person to hold up something green or whatever. And I come to win the scavenger hunt. I always have my notions bag sitting right there. I always have just like a collection of random objects within hand's reach, because like this is my event. I come to win the scavenger hunt, and I won it twice. So I won in October, which was the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde meeting, and then I won again in January for Pride and Prejudice. And since I haven't recorded in 6 months, I figured I would show you both of the prizes that I won. So first, this was the prize that I won back in October for the scavenger hunt, and it is a sock set from her Yosemite collection, and this is called Dusk, I believe. Yes. Oh, sorry, Big Sky collection. So it was actually, I guess, based around Yellowstone. She does a lot of like national park style collections. So this is the Dusk sock set. And it's so pretty. Just this like variegated main base, and then the two orange and pink accompaniments, and super generous on yardage too. So there's 420 yards on the main skein, and then both of the mini skeins are 25 grams, so they're 90 yards total per skein actually. So really, really generous. And I don't know if I'm actually going to use these for socks. It is on a sock base. It's 80% Superwash Merino, 20% nylon. But it's also really pretty, and I could see using it for a shawl. Not that socks shouldn't be pretty, they definitely are. But I could see using it for a shawl. And yeah, that was my freebie from our October meeting. And then this one is really huge. So this was from winning the scavenger hunt back in January for the Pride and Prejudice meeting. And this is a full year of mini skeins for her Fiber Gallery Club. So Literature Society is her quarterly club, and then she also has a monthly fiber gallery, she calls it, and it's basically inspired by Impressionist artwork. Well, actually, it's not all Impressionist. It's just inspired by fine art in general. I feel like she tends to pick a lot of Impressionist painters, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, there's also some like other eras of art in here. But anyway, it's all around paintings, and then she'll put up 2 paintings each month, and you can kind of vote on Instagram like which one you want her to draw the inspiration from. And I'm not a part of that, just because that would be like kind of a big expense for me to be part of 2 yarn subscriptions, but it is really, really pretty. And then she released mini skeins for all of the colorways that she did in 2021, just as like a retrospective. Or sorry, 2022. Yeah, so last year. This was all the colorways from last year. And this is the inspiration card. So this is each of the paintings that she drew inspiration from. Some famous ones, some kind of lesser known. And then these are all of the mini skeins that she translated. Sorry for the crinkling. These are all the mini skeins that she translated the paintings into. So probably gonna get a little blown out, but these colors are just absolutely stunning. And I won this. Free shipping even from the scavenger hunt. So if y'all are in the Literature Society and you don't come to win the scavenger hunt, you're messing up, because there are good prizes. And this is over 1,000 yards of yarn, because it's 12 mini skeins, 25 grams each. So yeah, there's over 1,000 yards in this. And I'm not 100% dead set on what I'm going to do with it yet, but I think I want to try a Tunisian crochet project with it. Tony Lipsy from TL Yarn Craft, she has a shawl called the Adventurous Shawl, which is designed for Advents, and I think that this would work really well for that. So that's kind of maybe an idea for it. But can you ever have too many mini skeins? Is it possible? I don't know. I don't think it's possible. So those are my 2 stash acquisitions that I won. And then I did buy a little bit of yarn from a pre-order. So I will show you that. So this is actually from a new to me dyer, and she goes by Beehive Yarns, and I'll just hold up one skein so you can see her really cute label. There's the beehive, and she is based out of the UK, somewhere in North Yorkshire. I'm not 100% certain what town, but she did a stunning advent calendar for 2022. Sorry, I keep forgetting what year it is because it's been so long since I recorded anything. So she did a stunning advent calendar, all inspired by Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. And it was a full fade, based around the seasons. So from spring to summer, fall, winter. It was just beautiful. And that's actually how I found her yarn, was from just seeing photos of her advent calendar on Instagram and being like, who is this dyer? Like, why are we not talking about her? And then because that advent was so popular, she actually did a pre-order in the first week of January for all of the colorways on mini, well, not on minis. You could get spring on minis, like the first set of the fade, and then you could do a pre-order for the rest of the colors on any base for full and half size skeins. And then throughout the year, she's going to be releasing each season as mini and full skein sets. So I bought 4 different colorways from her in that pre-order, and they just arrived yesterday, I think. She actually dyed it really quickly. It got held up in customs for a while, and I think they've been having some trouble with the Royal Mail. So these are the colors that I got. I'll hold them all up. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. So this golden one here is called Wheatstack. And then the central kind of rose color, I'll hold them up individually so you can actually see them. So this is Wheatstack, and it is a golden, caramel brown, speckles of dark brown, kind of tonal variegated. And then this is Prairie Flower, which is kind of a deep rose, kind of cardamom rose style with magenta speckles. Super pretty. Coral. This is called Cotton Frocks, and it's showing up on camera more as a cream, and I thought it was going to be more of a cream base with the pink and green speckles, but it's really more of a light pale pink with the pink and green speckles, and it's still super beautiful. But I bought 2 skeins of it thinking that it would be a good neutral to pair with other yarns, and I don't think that that's actually going to work out that way, which is fine. It's still absolutely beautiful, and I would love to have a pair of socks in it or something. And then the last color I got was Snow Underfoot, which is this variegated blue. And I just think they're all really beautiful together, actually. And I think what I'm gonna do is use them all in a shawl. I have kind of a Stephen West shawl pattern in mind. The name is escaping me. I wonder if I wrote it down. Nope. Why would I have written it down? Didn't write it down. But I will put it off to the side here, and I'll put the name, in the show notes. And I think that these colors mixed with like a kind of light cream would just make a really beautiful version of that shawl. But they're all fingering weight, so they're super versatile. I could use them in a garment, I could use them separately, I could use them together. We shall see. I just couldn't resist her colors. I thought they were really, really beautiful. And again, the yardage is super generous. So these are 100 gram skeins. There's 465 yards per skein. It's a 75% merino, 25% nylon. Her sock base is called Audrey, which is my grandmother's name, who is also from the UK. So I really liked that. And yeah, I just couldn't resist it. So that's Beehive Yarns. That's my real only stash acquisition. Not that that's any small. I mean, that's 5 skeins of yarn. That's plenty for February and March. That's plenty February and March acquisitions. But yeah, so that's everything I have for you today. I'm gonna try to edit this down so it's not like incomprehensibly long. But I appreciate you hanging out with me and checking out my video. Again, my name's Julia, but I go by Origin Threadcraft here on YouTube. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram under that name. And if you're interested in seeing more of my knitting and fiber content, hit that like and subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.